The Loerie's Creative Festival is done and dusted for 2015. So what are the big trend lines that marketers need to watch out for coming from the event itself? The Chief Executive Officer of the Loeries is Andrew Him, and a very warm welcome to you, Andrew. Before we get to the trend lines, first time in Durban this year. Was it successful?
Yes, Durban worked very well for us. As you say, it's the first time, so the first time is always a big challenge and you don't really know where it's going to go. And I think it worked beyond our expectations. It's successful as a single beachfront, and that's what we wanted to capture. So we got lots of positive feedback that, you know, everyone's back in one location. It's a very good networking environment. It's also good because a lot of the industry is in Cape Town. So what you have in Durban is you have the Cape Townians leaving their comfortable nest and also coming to Durban. So it's an away game for the whole industry, and I think that also added to the atmosphere.
And in Durban, I think the weather tends to play its part as well. Okay, let's talk about trend lines that emerged from the event this year. Just by way of context, it's a lot of seminars and presentations, but also the awards. But just in terms of the speakers, what should marketers be watching out for this year?
I think there are a couple of things. You know, the one challenge that you can see now is how to communicate with people. That is the big challenge you have. You can't simply rely on a traditional above-the-line campaign because everybody's not coming to work in the morning with a newspaper under their arm, and they're not going home and watching the same television station. So your media is sort of all over and it's ubiquitous, and you've got challenges on how to connect. So you're seeing a lot of work in localization, which is also interesting. So in terms of activations in-store, how do you get in front of people's faces, and how do you do something with people that's engaging and exciting and adds value to their life, as opposed to a simple, more of the same messaging which is just ignored entirely.
So what does that say about traditional media and traditional advertising as perhaps we once knew it?
Look, I think it's changing dramatically. The interesting thing is the television, or more like video, is strong and is actually growing. So you still have to have a medium to communicate, and in fact creativity is more important now than it was 20 years ago. So now you actually need an interesting message, something that communicates and resonates, so you have to put more effort into what you're creating. So video is becoming an important medium. I think people generally are reading less and less, want to read less and less. They're very micro, lots of bits of information. But with the growth of things like YouTube, it's taking the concept of making commercials and stories using video is actually in a big growth area.
One of the Grand Prix winners was for the lottery in one of the Middle East countries. It involved a wonderful theme concerning black cats. Why was that so successful? It's a great piece of work, but why do the judges like it?
I think, again, it's a clever idea, and perhaps to go beyond that, I'll tell you why the judges liked it. It was fun, and that's a huge thing.
You mean we're allowed to have some fun in advertising?
Well, often we don't realise that we're allowed to.
Which is another big bugbear, I know.
And that is, and you look at a lot of the work, and look at a lot of the communication you see in your day-to-day. Often we take ourselves too seriously.
It's dull and stultifying in many occasions.
Brands take themselves. And even the strange thing with the whole growth of social media, there seems to be a massive fear at the moment that we have to check, and we check our Twitter feed, and there better not be one complaint. So you design down to zero complaints. So you design a communication. You say, how do we communicate and no one in Twitter will complain? So then you go, oh, well, hang on a second. Let's make sure we have a rainbow nation. Let's make sure everyone is the same height. Let's make sure everyone's middle class. Everyone's happy. There are no upsets. There are no surprises. As soon as you do something surprising, there's somebody who goes, oh, I didn't like that surprise and I'm going to complain. So that's the challenge. So what you've actually got to realize, if you take any great piece of work, there'll be people who say, I didn't like that. That was too new for me. But you've got to say, I'm going to be successful in terms of my communication.
No, I accept the point, but in tough times, marketers find it more difficult to dig for the courage, don't they?
I wonder if that's the truth in looking at brands and across brands and say, what is the right thing to do in tough times? Because there's always the argument that says in tough times it's your opportunity to actually step out and use marketing and use brand to grow your market share. So it's not necessarily the case that you go, oh, it's tough times, we all have to become conservative.
Do you go back to Durban next year?
Yes, we're there for at least 3 years.
Andrew Himman from the Loeries, thank you.
Thank you.